Okay, it's great. I think, we don't spend enough time thinking about the future. It's so easy, isn't it, in our day-to-day work, in our lives, sort of to think about the here and now. As everyone's so busy, and it's really important, I think, that we do sort of stand back and think about the future. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. We're going to be talking about enterprise architecture, obviously. That's what the slide says, but it's also relevant to other parts of ICT as well. It's about our industry. I'm looking at it through my lens, and my lens is 30 years experience, as Chris said, but also my role as an enterprise architect person in government, in private sector, in public sector. I go around and talk to a number of different agencies, both in private and public as well. So I get to see a lot of sort of commonalities between agencies, which I find it really useful, and especially people sort of play down the public service, especially in IT. Oh, we do it so much better in the private sector. Well, I can tell you they don't. You have a look at Oracle's very big in banks. We've got a very big Oracle footprint in all of the major banks in Australia, and I can tell you some of the challenges they have. Government and the complexity that they have, it pales in significance in government. Now, when you're dealing, especially in the national security space, when you've got high and low networks, banks haven't got anything like that. So, don't put yourself down in the public sector, because I think we certainly underestimate how challenging the work is in the sector and how much value that we provide as well. So, and also, I don't know, maybe it's a sign of me getting old, but aren't things changing really quickly? So, the old days, I'm used to change, right? But I don't know, the last probably 3-4 years, I've been Oracle now for 4 years, and I'm just watching, and it's actually really interesting, I find, looking at from the vendor side now rather than the client side. But I'm struggling to keep up with the amount of change that's going on. So, it's a challenging field, and probably the reason why it's changing so much for me is around the internet. Now, the internet's the reason why we're seeing so much development going on, so much change in our industry, is because suddenly we've got a ubiquitous platform that people are all of a sudden sharing. So you're seeing big communities suddenly being created and sharing knowledge. So that's why you're seeing so much change going on. We can talk about AI, which we will. We'll talk about automation, which we will. We'll talk about all of these new fandangle things coming in. But there are big communities behind this. So, and big money also. So what's happening is the sharing of knowledge is resulting in faster change cycles. So just be aware. So I've got to warn you, 2 things. One, I think out loud. So we may go down to rabbit warrens, whatever comes in my mind I'll speak about, so there's nothing scripted. I've got some slides obviously that I need to try and direct my mind thoughts and help me stay on track. So just be aware of that. And secondly, I have a number of soapboxes that I'll jump onto tonight. Some things of my passion and my certain view of the world, so you'll get that as well. Maybe you won't agree, maybe you will agree, but my intent tonight is get you thinking about stuff, thinking about the future from 2 angles. One is, what about your careers? Where am I going? Is my job going to be automated? Have I got a job in the long term? Where am I going? It's all about you. So think about that in that context. And also for your organisations that you're working with. So where do you see some of the opportunities that your organisations can leverage? So I just want those 2 perspectives. Again, we've got an opportunity to think outside your windows, and that's what the intent is tonight. Make sense? All right, now first, I want to get everyone on the same page. Enterprise architecture, it means so many things to so many different people. You get 7 architects in a room and you're going to get 12 different answers to that question, what is enterprise architecture? So the guy on the left here is a guy by the name of John Zachman. He was the one who coined the phrase. He's an American academic. And I actually got to meet him once. I was in a cafe in Melbourne, and I turned around and now you see a photo of someone and you think, I know you, and you're not quite sure whether it's them or not. And anyway, my curiosity got the best of me, and so I turned around and I said, are you John Zachman? And he was actually quite surprised, I think, that someone actually recognised him, because we're going back years, right? And he was sort of chuffed, and we had a bit of a chat, and we ended up having breakfast together. So one, he was as interested in me as I was in him. So the reason he was interested in me is because he'd done all this Zachman framework and done a lot of work in the academic space, but hadn't done it in real life. I just implemented an enterprise architecture practice in IP Australia. And he was interested in my take on the practicalities and the issues that I found. So we had a great conversation. One of the best ones that it still makes me sort of pinch myself now about the conversation that we had. And it was funny because I was supposed to be at another meeting. So I got there and I texted saying I was caught in traffic. So I had to can the other meeting. But he was a really lovely fellow, really down to earth. But there were a couple of things that he said to me that resonated with me, and still to this day. And he was in Sydney the day before. He was doing a speaking circuit, and he was talking about the Opera House. And he goes, "Paul, the Opera House, is that good architecture, or is it the result of good architecture?" And it makes you think, doesn't it? And he goes, "Well, look at what it would have taken to build the Opera House." He said, "You have civil engineers, you had mechanical engineers, you had plumbing engineers, you had electrical engineers, you had all of these people working together for an outcome." And he said, the plumbing guy probably would have seen the electricals, but the electrical guys probably would have seen the plumbing. So it depends on what field you're in to what information you need. And when you think about that, he says, look about the IT industry. Isn't that the same? If you're a DBA, you probably want to know about the application, but the application developer generally doesn't really care much about the schema. So all networks, do they really care a lot about what's happening at the database level? Probably not at the detail. They want to know what it is, but probably not what it does or how it works. They probably don't need to know that. So if you're in the IT field, it's very similar. So for me, I like to look at enterprise architecture as really the framework of providing information to the right people at the right time. So the first thing is it's your base, and that foundational piece is what they call business architecture. So your business architecture is really articulating what business you're in. It sounds simple, doesn't it? But how you articulate that to what audience, so the right people, and what information do you need to articulate what your business does. So there's a number of frameworks that sort of make that a little bit easier. BizBock, so it's the sort of the PMBOK equivalent, effectively, the book of knowledge around business, some really good stuff in that. So lots of different ways of presenting what the business is. But once you've articulated that, it's okay, what information do you need in order to do your business? And that's your information architecture layer. So once you know what information is that's providing the business outcome, you've got a fairly good foundation. So what applications do you need in order to provide the information for your business? And that's what your information architecture and your applications architecture is all about. And then, of course, once you've got applications, it's what infrastructure do you need? So that's your infrastructure architecture. Infrastructure provides the capability for the applications, which provide your information, which provides your business outcome. So for me, that's a really clear and simple way of describing what enterprise architecture is to people. Now, I'll talk about some of the challenges in a second within this space, but to me, enterprise architecture is about setting the enterprise. The word gives it away, doesn't it? At the enterprise level. So things like principles, things like standards at an enterprise level. What you want to do as an enterprise architect is to really stop a lot of the rework, stop the inefficiency that used to go on in IT. So people are reinventing the wheel all the time. So the architectures, or the enterprise architecture, is really trying to put a governance structure around to stop all that stuff happening as well. Sort of, put some controls around it. I talk about in later slides consolidation, rationalisation, standardisation, simplification. That's generally your mantra of a CIO. Now, your enterprise architecture really is one of the tools that a CIO use to actually enforce that capability. So it's important to know. Now, where I see some of the challenges, it depends on the situation you're in. So quarter like leadership, EAs are situational. Everyone's got different ways of using enterprise architecture, because basically every organisation is going to be different. It depends on your organisation maturity. So if your organisation's relatively immature, they've got some cultural challenges in there, resistance to IT, and it's another one of my bugbears around at the moment. I see IT and the business as far away from each other now as they've ever been in my 30 odd years in the business. So there's obviously some real disconnects that are going on, because I'm seeing it everyone I'm talking to. The business hate IT and IT hate the business, and I see that getting worse. So we'll talk about some stuff around that in a minute. But current pain points, anyone from the ATO here? So what do you think the enterprise architects were doing when the sand fell down? So it was all hands to the pump to try and fix stuff. So you've got current pain points in an organisation, that's what you focus your resources on. So yeah, that's why you get so much differences, because depending on the situation is depending on what your EAs are doing. Do you think the ATO enterprise architects were dealing with current and future state roadmaps? No, they were into the detail to try and work out what the hell was going on with the failures, which was a significant issue. The other issue that we have too is within each industry. So we're seeing banks, for example, with the Royal Commission happening and the activity that was going on. I can tell you what they were doing for their enterprise architects. They weren't certainly looking at future state. They were looking at things like controls, governance. So that was their big focus on there. So again, this is why there's such confusion between enterprise architects, because basically each organisation is going to use enterprise architects differently. I talked about before the rationalisation, consolidation, standardisation, simplification mantra. In some cases, the enterprise architect is the one who is running that agenda for the CIO. In other cases, they won't. So you get a real disconnect between the role of each person. So I hope that helps get that understanding of why the confusion. So what's happening in the world of enterprise architecture? The 3 points there. So organisations are questioning the value of the discipline. They don't know what it is, and they also see EA, enterprise architecture, as IT. So those 3 are really sort of interconnected, and it's a real challenge to try and sell it. So especially when organisations are looking at reducing costs, we're seen as an overhead. And we're also seeing things change. We talked about it before, didn't we? Things are changing so quickly, by the time you create a model, it's out of date. So you talk about, you know, current state versus future state and your roadmap to get there. It's changing so quickly that people are questioning the value. So especially a really good enterprise architecture takes a long time to develop. And people are saying, well, yeah, it's taking a long time, it's a big investment. I mean, defence, you know, how many architects have they got? You know, 40, 50 people. That's a big overhead. And of course, and rightfully so, business are questioning, what value am I getting from that? The big thing for me is enterprise architects are seen as IT. And we talked about it before, where you've got a disconnect between the two. Now, enterprise architects shouldn't be an IT resource. Yes, of course, they've got to understand technology, but they also should be understanding business as well. So understand the pain points, what they're trying to achieve, to be able to talk business language. And they're really the conduit between the two. And because, of course, people are questioning the value, they're not investing in the capability. So again, we're seeing this relationship go off this way. So, you know, again, you can see some of the challenges that the IT group have got, where how do they convince someone, and I'll use this a few times tonight. For me, psychology and technology are 2 keys. Okay, so the psychology, humans are tribal by nature. Okay, so when you're from the IT tribe, you're not accepted in the business tribe, and vice versa. So just be aware that that's an issue. And when you've got a EA who's tarred with the IT brush, it's very difficult for them to become part of the business tribe. So it's a real challenge. So just be aware of it. Frameworks. Now, as you heard from Chris, I'm got to be open and transparent. I'm a TOGAF certified 1 and 2 level. What do I think about the framework? Not much. It's very difficult to implement. I've seen very few successful implementations of the framework. To me, it confuses solution architecture and enterprise architecture with the ADM. It uses too many bloody buzzwords. They've got things like enterprise continuum. You know, it's obviously a group of IT geeks that have got together trying to solve the problem. And to me, it doesn't solve the problem. All it does is confuse things. You look at something, and I compare it to a framework which I've got a lot of time for, and that's because I'm old school, is ITIL. So ITIL, if you're not aware of what that is, I know there's a few students here, the IT Infrastructure Library, that's really the standard for service delivery within IT, that's the standard. And what that does for me is actually, it communicates some of the challenges of the human language, well, certainly the English language, it's a shock of a language, can't even get it right myself. But things like incident and problem management and the difference between the two, and it actually, it helps with the communication process. I don't think the same can be said with TOGAF. Now, that said, do I recommend that people go and get certified into TOGAF? Actually, I would recommend it. The reason being is it's a bit like, in a lot of ways, an IT degree. It actually gets you in the door. So just because you're TOGAF certified, oh, you must know what you're talking about. I'm not sure that's the case. And actually, it's funny, I failed the first TOGAF exam, And the reason I failed it was because the second exam is actually a use case. You're in a consultancy, and what would you do in this consultancy? And I answered the question as I would as an ex-consultant, but that wasn't a TOGAF answer. So I needed to do the exam again and actually come up with a TOGAF answer, which I wouldn't have done. So that's, I'm saying, a complete disconnect. But as I said, as a career development, absolutely, and any sort of understanding buzzwords, understanding a process, it's not a bad thing. So, you know, I'll leave it there. Skills are becoming harder to source in the enterprise level. Now, for me, a good enterprise architect, and I've employed a number of them, are a jack of all trades. So it's really difficult because things are becoming so complex now that you've got to have specialisation. So generally they've sort of got a background, whether it's programming or database administration or infrastructure. It's, they've got a base, but then they move around into other areas. So they've got a good understanding of what DevOps is, understand a project management methodology. So they've got a good broad brush. And that's really difficult, especially with the younger people coming through, because things are becoming so complex. It's so easy to get consumed into a particular speciality and to get out. So I see that as a real challenge going forward. And this is my particular bugbear, is that I see this all the time, and a lot of you may have seen this too, project managers getting involved in architecture. So I get it as an ex-project manager, you're concentrating on outcome of on time, on budget. So sometimes you get into technology and you make some decisions because it's in the betterment of my outcome, which is on time and budget. It may be bad for the enterprise. So for example, I go and get something developed because I've got the capability to get something developed versus I could have bought it off the shelf. So what I've done is actually created more technical debt. And without a good governance structure, which most organisations haven't got, you'll see a lot of this happening. So a lot of the problems that you see in organisations, especially government organisations, is you've had rogue project managers going off and becoming feral. Now, I tried to stop this when I implemented a number of them actually, where I had a group of architects and I'd allocate an architect out to each project. And the idea, because basically you'll find, and again it's this human psychology and human nature stuff, is that people become part of the mothership. So that's what I try to sort of encourage. They knew all of the standards that need to be followed. They had all the principles down pat. And then I'd let them go out into the mission, I'd call it, so they would go off into a project. And they'd be fine for a few months, but then all of a sudden they turn rogue and suddenly they become part of that tribe. And they make decisions, or the project manager convinces us to make decisions, that they leave the mothership. And so I see that phenomena going on too. I tried to actually bring them back into the mothership and re-indoctrinate them and then put them out again. But it was a constant challenge, that one. So it was quite interesting. But that's another real issue that I think we have, and that is project management dominating and making decisions that they shouldn't be making. I talked about the enterprise architecture, rationalisation, consolidation, standardisation, but I wrote an article on LinkedIn about this. I got a real problem with it when you've got your enterprise architect who's controlling basically the roadmap of technology, the architecture. So you see the business saying, and I can tell you, every one of your organisations, the IT is not meeting the business need. Everyone. I see it in private, I see it in public. So the current state isn't working. So what we're doing by the enterprise architecture, continuing down a path like this, is perpetuating the current state. So yes, change needs to be managed. Transition or transformation, as we're calling it now, that seems to be on the nose lately too, I've noticed, because people are realising that large-scale digital transformation is really difficult. So we need to look at ways of better managing that. So, you know, we talked, and Gartner, for those of you familiar with Gartner, they've got this thing called bimodal or two-speed IT. Now, my problem with two-speed or bimodal IT is basically what they mean by that is they chunk off a little bit of IT that focus on innovation and they leave the rest of the team focused on BAU. Now, we did this back in the mainframe days, so you always had someone who wanted the latest development because that's where you get your latest skills from, and people hated doing BAU because it's basically maintenance and you de-skilled yourself. So there's always a challenge in that. But for mine, what you're doing, and people are struggling, all organisations are struggling with trying to keep the lights on. We're seeing so much change, so much stuff that's going on in this field that BAU and just keeping the lights on in an environment of cost cutting is just killing us. So it's really a difficult, I mean, it is the old analogy of changing the wings while the plane's in the air. So current state isn't working. So what do we do? How do we change it? Now, for me, we'll talk about solutions in it. I think, first of all, it's sort of like the alcoholic. You've got to know you've got a problem first, and that's what I'm trying to sort of articulate here. We, as an IT industry, have a problem. It's what do we do? How do we fix it? That's the challenge we need to work on. So, we know there's change, we know the change is happening very quickly. So what's driving it? And my concern is that, we've got an obviously election coming up possibly in May, likely a change of government if you read the polls. At the moment, I've got to tell you, the government is living outside its means. So what we'll see is some major changes that'll need to go on. So, is technology going to be driving that? In some cases, yes, absolutely it is. But I think there's a burning platform coming. So there's going to be some cost cutting. So what's that mean? How do we manage that in a manageable way? So we've got to also, again, be more agile. We're seeing the business, we need to get more engaged with citizens, which we absolutely do. We need better services. We don't want to be on the phone for half an hour to DHS looking at benefits. There are ways and better ways of doing what we're doing now. We need to be more agile. The trouble is, we're so focused on the BAU, aren't we, that we can't get into that other space where we need to. We can't add that value that we think we need to. So how do we manage that journey, I guess? The other one here, we're seeing obviously in private sector the competition, but that's still relevant in the public service as well. So we're seeing, and another one of my soapboxes, the success. I'll probably do another talk on this one. That's the success or otherwise of outsourcing in the public sector. I got my own thoughts, and I think it's been a disaster. I think what it's done is, people at the time in the 90s when it was all the rage, is that they had capability, and all of a sudden now they haven't got capability, and they didn't think IT was going to become as important as it was. And they say it's not our core business, so we won't do it. That was the mantra at the time, but I think you're finding now that it is becoming core business. So it is so meshed up in IT systems, it's joined at the hip. So I'm seeing business rules, and the business person sitting there has got no idea what's going on behind. They don't know. They don't understand the business rules. They don't understand how the benefits are being calculated because the computer's doing it. Who understands the business rules? It's either the BA or the programmer. So they're the ones with the knowledge now, not the business person. So I'll come talk about that in a minute. But it's a real challenge. So from a competition perspective, we need to make sure that our IT groups are as efficient and as competitive as we can make it to be. Otherwise, outsourcing is an option. Cloud is an option, which I'll talk about later. So yeah, I think it's very important that we just keep that. The big thing for me, and from any IT person, doesn't have to be an enterprise architect, you need to look at it from a business lens, because that's the language you need to communicate. If you're looking at business cases, if you're looking at investments that need to go on, you need to address it from a business lens, not from an IT lens, okay? Again, it depends on your audience. Obviously, in an EA role, you need to talk IT language and you've got to talk the business language. So you've just got to watch your audience there. But as I said, as a rule, generally in IT, we don't speak enough business. Okay, some trends that influence industry. SMACI, it's actually a Gartner term. It's been around for a few years, but it's still as valid today as it was back when the Gartner analyst actually came up with it. And I've actually changed it. It actually means social, mobile, analytics, cloud, and according to Gartner, it was IoT. I called it interfaces, and the reason being I think IoT is a technology. I want to talk about technology in the next slide, but what I want to do here is talk about concepts. Social. Yeah, we can talk about the demise of Facebook and all the challenges, but going back to psychology and technology, we're social animals. We like to share. So social platforms are strong now, they'll just get stronger. So the Instas and all of the rest of the Snapchats and all of these things still going to get bigger, and new ones are going to enter into the market. So that's how the kids communicate. That's the kids socialise now. I know my children are certainly big users of the technology. That's just going to get bigger. So if you're looking from a career perspective to get into that, or think that this is not so much relevant in the public sector, guess again. That's going to be a very big area. Social is all about, for me, and I don't know if you've ever heard of a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk, He's a marketing guru, and he's a very big user of social media, but he uses, which I really love, the term, it's all about gaining attention. So social media is about gaining attention, and it's just going to get bigger. So be aware of that one. Mobile, my mobile just upgraded to the latest iPhone. It's a lovely bit of kit. That's not going anywhere. So I feel naked without it, to be honest. I'm everywhere that I do my work on it. So mobile, and it's a real challenge if you've ever gone into mobile development. That's not as simple as it sounds, it's not as sexy as it sounds either, but it's still a growth area. So again, from a career perspective, that is not going anywhere. Analytics, now analytics I'm calling big data, and I'll talk about this in the next slide as far as technology goes, but anything with around analytics, it's the power of data. I know you've probably seen all the media to death in this space, but it is the growth area. If you're a data scientist, you can guarantee your job for the next 10 years. It's going to get bigger, it's going to get more important. You're going to get other technologies around it, AI, other types of automation that are leveraging analytics and your big data platforms. Great opportunities in that space. Recommend it highly, but I'll talk about that further in a sec. Cloud. Now, cloud amazes me. Probably the reason being that I'm a cloud architect, and I've been doing that for the last few years. Oracle, for those of you who don't know, is betting the farm on the cloud. So we are changing as an organisation. We're 140,000 people, employees, and we're changing from basically the traditional database company, which is what we're renowned for, and moving all of our technologies into the cloud. So it's a big change, it's a big culture change, and it's actually, I'm finding it quite fascinating watching the whole process go on. But what I'm quite interested or astounded at the lack of knowledge of what cloud is, and how many people just misunderstand what it is, and I suppose that's our marketers who have gone bananas over hyping stuff. I get that, but really it's quite a simple thing. From basically the three types of cloud. Now we can talk about sort of around the edges, but infrastructure as a service, so IaaS as they call it in the teams. Basically, what that's doing is stopping organisations having to buy kit. Now, buying kit's a drama because you've got to go to market, you've got to go through a tender process, you've got to procure, you've got to update, you've got to do all of that stuff to manage it. And that's a challenge, absolutely. What you're doing with IaaS is actually renting that. And in theory, some of these big players, so the big players, Amazon or AWS, Microsoft with Microsoft Azure, they're the two players, Google, Alibaba's coming into the market as well. They're focused on this, providing infrastructure at mass scale. So the beauty of it, and there's some really great use cases for IaaS, and that is that you only pay for what you use. So if you've got big kit that you're running overnight, you're keeping 24/7 running your application, and you're only using that during business hours, you're paying for that time by watering and feeding and electricity, power, data center, all that sort of stuff. And you're not really using it. So is that the best value of that hardware? So it solves a use case. But the trouble is, you're dealing just at the hardware layer. You're not dealing with the software layer. So just trying to maintain your software. So this is where this software as a service comes in. That's your top layer. So you got your infrastructure layer, you got your software as a service up the top layer. Now software, you've seen it, Office 365, you're provided software basically as a service, and it's usually on a per user revenue model effectively. So you don't have to patch anymore, you don't have to update anymore, you don't have to do a lot of the things that you would have to do in a traditional IT shop to keep it going. And that's a wonderful way of redirecting your resources into that value add we were talking about before, moving them out of the, I call it monkey work, out of the monkey work into the higher value work. So, and from a user perspective, it's actually quite good from an IT because you're not having to worry about a lot of the change management side of it, as wrong or as good as that is. Because basically that you're got to upgrade. Normally you say, we're going to wait for the users to be ready for the upgrade. In a SaaS world, no, you upgrade. So they'll restrict you on that. In the middle is called a platform as a service. Now, platform as a service is a really way of leveraging when you've got a software as a service. Sometimes you're restricted on what you can do. With PaaS, it actually extends that. So it's really the Techo. Think of it as the Techo platform. So whether it's a analytics platform or a big data platform or a application development platform. So it's providing all of that sort of techie tools in order to extend SaaS. So SaaS may not do what you want. You can use PaaS to extend it. So that's where the different models will come on. So it depends on your use case to where cloud would be useful or not. So people say, oh, it's all about reducing costs. No, it's not, because you'll find in some cases it's actually more expensive. Does it provide extra agility? Well, absolutely, because it used to take me a month to spin up a server because I'd have to go through my infrastructure team to spin up a server. Now it's a matter of minutes via the cloud. So it's got a lot of greatness on it. Now, why I think, and a lot of people have asked me this question, it's probably the most common question I get asked, is a cloud a passing fad? Look at Oracle. Oracle's core business is on-premise software. So we own a product called Siebel, which many of the organisations in this town are using, ATO, DSS, Department of Health, Border Protection. It's a CRM system, largest CRM system on-premise in the world. Now, we've got probably 4 different databases that product supports, a traditional client-server architecture. It's very scalable, it's very complex, it's got 7 different operating systems that application runs on. So you imagine trying to support that application from an Oracle perspective. Put your Oracle hat on for a second. So you've got that application that's got 7 different teams just looking after different operating systems, so Linux, Windows, all of those sort of versions. They've also got when you're looking at new functions that come in, you've got to be tested in each one of those teams. They've got over 1,000 people that are looking after that product because there are so many teams. So you imagine the logistical nightmare. You've got every year, and this is what we used to use in the industry too, and I'm sure some of you use it, there's a bug in the system. Oh, we've got to wait for the next version. So that was actually used as a good excuse to sort of slow down some of the process and some of the change cycle. But we're seeing now with Siebel, for example, there was so much pressure on the market to release quickly, they're doing quarterly releases now. But again, the feedback from the market is, I want innovation and I want it now. So I don't want to wait for the quarter, I want it now. So the cloud provides that capability. From an Oracle perspective, we got one code base to support in the cloud. We provide it as a service. We don't call it Siebel anymore. There's a CRM capability. But all of a sudden, and Oracle's not dissimilar to any other of our competitors, you've got software is being delivered by one code base. You're controlling all of the operating system, all of the infrastructure underneath it. You can provide a service level that you control, so you're not getting bugs from customers saying it doesn't work under this version of Linux, that sort of stuff. All that goes away. So a company wins because it's less cost, and the consumer wins because it's innovation and it's faster. Win-win. Of course, it's going to get stronger, it's going to get bigger. Now, you're seeing a truckload of investment going in cloud on all companies. So always a good bet to follow the money, in my view. So anything, when you're hearing about technology and you see companies investing in it, and again we'll talk about technology in the next slide, where companies are investing truckloads of money, as a company as large as Oracle is doing it, there's something in it. So that's my logic. You're seeing technology driving a lot of change, obviously. You're seeing, I don't want to use the old Uber and the Airbnb because everyone seems to use those analogies, but you can see the challenges and the opportunities that come on. So years ago, used to be sort of companies that never had enough deep pockets to actually buy the amount of equipment that you needed to actually instigate disruption. So now with the cloud, you do. So a startup company can have all of the kit that they need and disrupt any industry. It couldn't have happened 10 years ago, 5 years ago even, because the technology wasn't available. The capability wasn't there. It is now here. So this is what I'm seeing, and I'm a little bit concerned, things are moving so quickly. It's because suddenly capability is available to everybody, and not just us. I'm really worried about Australia. We'll talk about another soapbox in a sec, but our lack of vision in technology really worries me. I see a lot of opportunities that we're missing out on, and I'm seeing a lot of other countries, because Oracle's a global brand. I'm going out and having a talk to my counterparts around the world, and I'm seeing what's going on around the world. And I'm seeing the access to skills that we certainly don't have. And that's what worries me. The big communities of developers that are doing stuff that we don't see, and that worries me. So, technology. Autonomous automation in its many forms. I don't know about you, but when I think of autonomous, I think of the autonomous vehicle. And a lot of buzz around the autonomous vehicle, but I don't know if you saw the New South Wales Transport report on the autonomous trials that were held in New South Wales, and I found it fascinating reading, because I don't know, again, it's what I've been reading, I guess, that it's going to be here very shortly. Autonomous vehicles are going to be here on our roads very shortly. But then you read that report, and the automated car was travelling along, and all of a sudden it slowed to 40 k's. It was going past a bus, and the bus had an advertisement on the back window saying do 40 k's. Of course, the camera picked that up, thought it was the speed limit, and slowed down to 40 k's. So, you know, danger Will Robinson. It was going along on a highway, and all of a sudden veered off. A paint truck had dropped white paint onto the road, and it had made a line, and it followed the line, not the... So there's all the things. You read this report and go, oh my God, certainly our conditions here in Australia, I can't see it happening very quickly. There's so many challenges in that space, not let alone, you know, the legal side of it, like, you know, which person does the car make? Do I hit a group of kids, or do I hit a group of old people? You know, who makes that decision and who's liable? Not only that, but just the technology isn't quite here. Though I got to drive in a Tesla a couple of weeks ago. What a lovely vehicle that is, but it had semi-autonomous, and the driver was actually talking to me, and we were coming to a red light. It was actually a green light at the time, and it turned orange, and that car made the decision to go through. So I thought, that's pretty cool. So yeah, it's happening, but I just worry about our industry and the hype around it. The hype that we're going to have autonomous vehicles next year. Well, no. But I still think, and automation is very similar, and whether you call it, you know, robotic process automation or AI, machine learning, all of the stuff that goes on in that, is there a lot of potential in that? Absolutely. So, I mean, you see it all in your organisations, I'm sure. You go in there and have a look at your HR teams, and there's dozens, and these are larger organisations, there's hundreds of people in the HR and ERP or your finance area. Really, do we need that many people in there, and what are they doing? I dare say that a lot of those jobs could be automated. There's a lot of capability in that space, there's a lot of technology and tools in that space, but the tool sets to be able to implement it is another challenge. Artificial intelligence, AI, is actually being used now and used very heavily. Oracle uses a lot with its cloud. We've got obviously a lot of people coming into the data centre, and security, what's coming in. We need to understand what's hitting the servers. We use AI in that because it's not humanly possible to check everything coming in, and we look at outliers. You notice the banks do it as well. Actually, it's used Oracle technology is used in the banks. So, you know, you get a phone call from someone saying that a transaction's happened. That's using AI now, because humans aren't capable of putting that many transactions through. So we're seeing more and more activity, more investment, and that'll only become from strength to strength. Again, from a career perspective, you're looking at an area where I think good bang for buck, it's anything to do with automation, because there's so much potential there. But I again worry that the hype versus the reality. It's still technical, it's still a skill set, it's still an understanding of what business is trying to achieve that is going to bring this together. This is the digital transformation skill sets that we haven't quite arrived at. But watch this space, because I think it will. Platform computing, I think again, from a CIO perspective, would I look at developing a Hadoop platform now for my big data, because I'm looking at large volumes of data? No, I wouldn't, because the skill sets, the risk associated with setting something like that up is too high for me when I can buy it as a platform already set up for me. So the old days of just going out and buying kit, putting software on it and making it run are over. The platform is the way to go, because it's already there for you. It reduces that huge risk of implementation, which you usually have in a project. So that's just going to get bigger and bigger. I dare say, you know, things like application development platforms, they're all available now in the cloud. So everything you need for DevOps and all of those methodologies for delivering applications are all available in the cloud. So why would you invest in doing that infrastructure in your own organisation when it's completely available? Now, security is another discussion, and whether the cloud's ready for that. You know, especially public cloud, and the trust in the platform, that will come, because you're dealing with companies whose reputation is based upon security. If Oracle or Microsoft or Amazon got breached, though don't get me started about Amazon, but from AWS, but that's more not so much the technology side of it, that's an implementation issue. But generally, the reputations are reliant upon trust. So they put a hell of a lot of money into investing in that platform. So it'll only be a matter of time before that will become the standard. IoT, Internet of Things and edge computing, I see some challenges in that spot. Again, from a career perspective, IoT, there's got some fantastic use cases. Everything from your wearables and your health platform through to supply chain. There's a lot of great ways of leveraging that technology, a lot of time for it. With the edge computing, I've got I think there's, again, some water to go under the bridge for that because of security constraints. That hasn't been built on a security model. So when you're dealing with some of the stuff that potentially some of the use cases of IoT can get into, you're opening a can of worms there. So there's some potential for some stuff that can go rogue there. So great vision, great technology. We've got a little bit of maturity around policy and implementation in there, but again, from an area perspective, worthwhile. I talked about big data and analytics. It's a big area, and there's generally no generalists. You're looking at, say, data scientists who understand how to put a Hadoop cluster together, or a guy who understands how to write SQL to extract information out. You're looking at the visualizers, so the people who get the digital visualization to put the dashboards together. They're all particular skill sets, and they're all specialist skill sets. So you'll find that someone has got sort of a bent in between one or the other, but generally not one who's got it across the board. So this is where, and you're seeing a lot of sort of press around the lack of data scientists. The big challenge for me, and I've only seen it in a few, is that understanding of what business is trying to achieve. So it's all right to talk about analytics, but what are you trying to do? Because business really can't articulate it. And that's a real challenge, to have someone with that skill set who understands the business, who understands the technology. It's a match made in heaven. But again, as I said before, the area of a lot of opportunity, a lot of money, if that's what's a driver for you, big data and analytics is a tick for me. Blockchain and DLT, so distributed ledger technology. Now, this is overhyped. So if blockchain, if you read the press, it can solve world peace. You've got to be really careful about blockchain. Has it got some use cases that are fantastic? Absolutely. It was actually, distributed ledger technology, we've got to think about what it is. It was actually in 1991. People talk about Bitcoin, and Satoshi Nakamoto is the pseudonym for the person. Apparently he's Craig Watson, I think his name is, Australian bloke, Harris, I think of name, I don't know. He was an Australian bloke who apparently invented it, but he's now being sued. So all of a sudden he's sort of, no, actually it wasn't me. So no one actually knows who invented it. But the actual guys who started DLT was some academics. And what they were looking for is actually date stamping documents. That's how it actually originally started and then evolved. Now the magic of what Bitcoin did is actually brought the technology together. So cryptography, been around for a long time. The idea of putting blocks together, smart contracts, all that sort of came. And a thing which I thought was the magic sauce was a concept called proof of work. And a proof of work validates the transaction. Now, blockchain by its very nature, it's a series of, now it's actually called block and chain. We've put it together in recent times. So it's about a block and on a chain. Now, the block needs to know that the next block refers to it. So this is where if you go in, if you've got like imagine a transaction, a set of transactions, and if you invalidate one of those transactions, i.e. change it, it'll invalidate the chain. And so therefore, it's not valid. So it's very secure. Now, though, if it's a small blockchain, it can actually be hacked. Whereas the proof of work concept that Bitcoin brought in was actually giving it out to the mass to validate that transaction for me. So in a Bitcoin, they call them miners, and those miners get out there and they validate the transaction. And when more than 50% of people agree that that's a valid transaction, it gets distributed out to the ledger. Now, that to me is just brilliance in your concept, because something as big as Bitcoin, and you've got thousands and thousands of people validating transactions, there's no way that you're going to be able to invalidate a transaction. So it's as safe as houses. But in that use case, you're motivating your miners, your validators, with money. That's great in that use case, but what are you going to do, for example, in a health environment where your health record is suddenly being validated. Are you getting your practitioners to validate that that's a transaction that's valid and therefore proof of work therefore? Yes, you can do that from a policy perspective. Yes, you can compensate people, and they're doing that now with My Health Record. They're compensating people for using that to sort of get people used to the technology. So, yep, there's definitely a way. But what about something like GDPR, so the General Protection Act from Europe, where they say that you need to take me out, so invalidate my record. So if I say that I don't want a health record, for example, you have to destroy my record. That doesn't work in blockchain, because blockchain you can't invalidate, so you can't delete a record effectively. So you've got to be really careful with blockchain and distributed ledger technologies. It's a ledger, the old-fashioned accounting ledger. You can't invalidate, you can't scrub. You can change, but you can't delete. So be really careful about solving world peace, because you need to be careful of the use case. But do I see a lot of valid use cases for the technology? Absolutely. So again, from a technology tick. CX, customer experience, it's a big thing around the place, certainly in Oracle's world. Digital assistants, also known as chatbots. I don't know, those of you who are on the internet a lot, they're popping up all the time now. They're becoming the norm, actually becoming really annoying. But once they've actually been leveraging AI, there's some real good capability there that just needs to be leveraged further. And especially some of the newer technology around voice too. And actually I didn't mention in those earlier slides about interfaces. I talked about IoT, but I didn't talk about interfaces. Interfaces, what I mean, where I think a lot of opportunity is around voice. So things like Alexa for Amazon Echo. I was in San Francisco, which is the headquarters of Oracle, a few years ago, and they've got what they call the Innovation Lab. And you walk into this Innovation Lab and they've got sort of rooms of new technologies. And I walked into one room with one of the presenters, and there was an Amazon Echo. And one of those Amazon, you've seen them now, they actually weren't available in Australia at the time. So a little black speaker sitting there, and he goes, "Alexa, I've just had a baby." And then this Alexa pops up and he goes, "Oh, firstly, congratulations. Would you like me to add to your personnel record?" And then the screen up above was adding it to the personnel record. So I validated who he was and updated his record. And Alexa goes, "Oh, and by the way, that baby is now a beneficiary of your superannuation. Would you like me to add that too?" And so he's going through a whole thing of chatting to a speaker, and it's updating his personnel records. And I thought, wow. So again, this is the future, and this was a few years ago now, so it's come a long way now. So again, I think a lot of opportunities in that space for using your voice, and a lot of work around, and DTA, Digital Transformation Officer or agency, are into this space, and that is doing a lot of user interface stuff. So I was a bit concerned a few years ago when they were sort of jumping out on these user journeys and all that sort of stuff. And don't get me wrong, I think we've got a lot of work to do to fix up a lot of our user experiences, because I think our interfaces are quite different. But it's also another challenge that the government has too, I think called WCAG, so Worldwide Accessibility Guidelines. So that's about putting an interface in front of people that people with disabilities and things like screen readers can not get confused over. But the trouble is with WCAG, it actually takes away a lot of the usability too. So it's usability versus accessibility, and that's a constant balance in between that. So that's why you've got to be a little bit forgiving with government websites, because they've got extra challenges. It's something like a bank, or actually banks probably do, but some of the hotel chains, example, they probably wouldn't put as much work as government would do into that space. So just be aware there's some challenges in there, but a lot of opportunities. ATO's been playing with chatbots for some time now. Live experiences and augmented reality, that's AR. There's a thing that I've saw a demonstration of that was really cool, and it was basically a live experience of someone who had crashed their car and they were getting it assessed. And there was a guy the car was damaged, and then they had a person back in a control room, so like an assessment centre. And what they did is they had a mobile phone, and they were showing the car damage, and the assessor on the other end of the line was actually drawing. So I'll just go into here, and he was drawing around where the ding was, and he was showing him where to do it. So he was actually controlling what to do, and he assessed it and said, okay, you've hit this panel and you've hit this panel, and where else is the damage? And the guy was showing him. So it was a two-way conversation between people via video. And it was just absolutely tremendous way of just being more efficient. I don't know if you've ever hit a kangaroo and had to go through an insurance stuff, but it's a drama and it's time consuming and costly for the insurance agency. This technology reduces that significantly. So, big fan of it. So live experiences, look it up. Augmented reality, there's a really good app from Yamaha. Now, Yamaha released a electronic motorcycle, and it went in for service, and of course the normal motorcycle mechanic had never seen an electronic motorbike before, but they gave them an iPad and they used the camera with the iPad, and they had someone and a video assistant actually telling them about what needed to be done. So you imagine that from a training thing. So you have specialists in a central spot that are available out into the fields, and the efficiencies that could gain from a business. Some really fantastic opportunities in that space. Again, some more to go under the bridge as far as maturity, things like networks and all of that sort of stuff, other challenges in this country, but it's a real lot of opportunity. Last one, containerization, microservices, serverless. Containerization and microservices, that's really the foundation, what they call cloud native. So most of your applications developed as a software as a service for software as service providers is really using or leveraging that technology. So it's really techo stuff. And would I look at sort of the standard for doing containerization is Docker, and a control orchestrator called Kubernetes. So there, if you'd hear those two, that's around containerization. It's basically a way of virtualizing your hardware, virtualization within virtual. It's very lightweight, so it provides a lot of flexibility. A lot of the software manufacturers now are containerizing their software, and therefore abstracting that from the hardware layer. So all the challenge you used to have about running it on a different kit goes away with containerization. So it's big, it's specialised, but there's a lot of opportunity and some great capability there. Microservices, again, you're seeing I suppose the poster child for microservices is Netflix. So you're seeing in Netflix, if you're a member, that some of the times some of the screen is errored. It's usually a microservice that's failed. So they've got great ways of just taking a little bit of the site down, not the whole site. So there's a lot more flexibility, a lot more agility, so you don't have to instead upgrade one monolith of application. You can do little bits of it, so the microservices. So that's really the buzz. But you've got to be careful with microservices because, again, not one size fits all. There are certain use cases that microservices work very well for and others not so. So just be aware that is going to be a challenge, and again, from a use case perspective, it doesn't solve every problem. Serverless, for those of you who haven't heard of that, AWS Lambda, Microsoft Functions, Oracle's got functions as well. It's basically a new model for delivering code. So rather than having to develop code and deploy that code, you basically rent it, and you only pay for it when you use it. So there are a number of use cases that could be really good for. So, for example, you only use it very rarely for a particular function. So why build it? Why test it? Why deploy it? Why upgrade it when I can just rent it? So again, it's a use case and it's fairly new. So some of you may not have heard of that terminology before. Do I see some potential in it? Yes. Is that there at the moment? No. So it's build, it's work in progress. But again, if you hear that term, think of it as I'm renting code. Like anything to do with IT, cybersecurity is going to be big. Now at the moment, again, you're hearing the press that they can't get enough cybersecurity experts, and that's true, but I think that will reduce. And the reason I think that will reduce is because of the use of AI. So you're seeing a lot of the cybersecurity people just playing around with policy and controls and doing all of that sort of legwork, and I think there's a hump of that work. But I think a lot of the watching the stuff coming in, dashboarding of highlighting when there's issues, all of that sort of stuff, that'll all become automated in not too distant future. Again, there's a lot of investment going in that space, so that will grow very quickly. So again, if you listen to the press, cybersecurity is it a good job? Will it get you a job at the moment? Yes. In the future, is that the best way to put all your eggs in? I'd probably say no. So a good skill to have as a base. But long term, I see a lot of automation going on there. The other one is information management. We talked about big data and analytics and all of the stuff to do with our crown jewels, which is our data. What we're seeing now is the whole lifecycle management of the data, and it was something that I had a lot of background in very early on about things like archiving and all of the controls that need to be, data quality, master data management, all of that stuff that is traditional information management is still going to become more important as people learn once they use AI some of the challenges it's going to be. Now, machine learning, I'll let you read that. Now, if you don't get that, that's fine. So I've shown that to a number of people, and a number of people go, I don't get it. And if you don't get it, it's because you don't understand machine learning. So machine learning's got to work on the data, and if it hasn't got the data of a quality, it's going to make wrong decisions. So all of a sudden data quality becomes so important, doesn't it? And I think it's going to, as we go down this journey, as water goes under this bridge, that's going to be a key issue for us in all organisations. So yeah, have that one in. All right, so moving on, challenges with trends. Leadership, one of my soapboxes. I see a lot of our leadership not understanding technology, not understanding how technology can be used effectively. They've usually and I see this cycle, especially with CIOs, where the CIO, they're saying, oh, you don't understand our business, you're too technical, get out. And the next layer, you get someone in who's got a business background, and that lasts a little while. Hang on, you don't understand IT, get out. So it's getting this balance, and I haven't seen, it's getting better, don't get me wrong, but I'm seeing a lot of leadership that just doesn't understand the world we live in at the moment. And as I said, it's not criticism, because things are moving so quickly. How do you keep your head around? We talked about before about how do you keep the BAU stuff going? How do I keep the lights on? Because that's what I'm being judged as a CIO. And innovation as well. But the big thing for me is that second one. Now, this is my biggest soapbox now. Business people. IT, ever since I fell into IT, it was all about, and when I started in mainframe, right? And mainframe, when you were in that sort of bubble, you had all the knowledge, you had all the power. And so you used to sort of treat the business with a bit of contempt because you could. And then all of a sudden it changed, where it was the business, the business need. You weren't meeting business needs, and so therefore the business had all the power. And that's still to this day the business. You've got to be customer focused. You heard that. It's the business is right. You're not doing anything in IT. You're doing the business. And I'm seeing that cycle now, but I'm seeing IT people learning about the business, but I'm not seeing business people learn about IT. As I said, I talked about before about these people who are typing away, the business people typing away, have got no idea what they're doing. They understand the screens, but they don't understand the business rules. They don't understand technology. And when you have that chat about technology, they blank over. I don't want to talk about IT. And that's the leadership too. So we're seeing secretaries, ministers. I'm seeing a complete lack of vision at the government level. So it's on tape. I was hoping that Malcolm Turnbull, with his background, would have a really good vision from IT, but unfortunately the culture grabbed him up, and I'm seeing that. I coach cricket, and I've coached little kids as they're coming through, and Australia actually reminds me of one child that I coached who was the most talented kid I've ever seen at under 10s. And then he knew it, and he was head and shoulders. At under 11s, he was still better than anybody. At under 12s, he was better than anybody else. But then he got lazy. He didn't practice. He didn't want to go any further with it. So under 13s, you watched everyone overtake him. Under 14s, under 15s, and now he doesn't play the game anymore. I'm seeing Australia being the same. They're lazy. We got no vision, no way of leveraging what we've got as a society to move us forward. So, a bit controversial, isn't it? But that leadership of understanding of what technology can do, how it can change people, how it can change society, how it can be leveraged for good, I'm not seeing a lot of activity in that space, and I think that's a shame, because I think we're losing out a lot of things. So as I said, my big issue is the business people need to learn IT just as important as the IT need to learn the business. Current state of many technical ecosystems. Now, you all work in organisations and all seen some of the challenges in that space. We've got technology that's very old. It's core in some of our businesses as well. We've got so much technical debt we don't know what to do. and that's going to be a significant challenge and a handbrake for us moving forward. So I haven't got the answer to that one, but yeah, we just need to be aware of the challenges in that space. The other thing I'm not seeing too is foundational capabilities. You notice how our system works for getting MPPs, getting business investment. You develop a business case for doing something. You know, I want a grant system, or I want a system that will help my supply chain and get me more efficient in the supply chain. They don't look at the foundational stuff. They look at just an outcome at the end of the day. What needs to be in place? What are the capabilities that need to be in place? Because every time we do this, we're reinventing the wheel. So, and I think that's across government. So agencies are getting better at it because they are leveraging what they've already got. But across government, we're not doing that enough. Across business, we're not doing it enough. So it gets back to, I guess, some of the conversation we're having before around platforms. So what are the platforms that need to be in place that we can leverage and we can get economy of scale and that we can get efficiencies? So I think there's, again, some challenges in that space that we need to look at the way that we're funding projects, because I think that methodology isn't working for us. Change resistance, you're going to get that. You know, and ever since I've been in the workforce, change has always been hard. I don't like change. I don't think anyone does. There's always going to be that resistance. So that's what we do. But I think the biggest issue for me in the public service is apathy. And I see that from being on the inside and being from the outside now. Oracle. We, a couple of years ago, decided we better eat our own dog food, and we changed all of our back-end systems to be cloud. Last year they fired all our IT shop. We haven't got an IT shop. We don't need it. It's all back-ended. So don't think your job's safe in IT. So that's a really strong message. People don't see what's coming, and this is why these sort of events are great, because we need to really have it in our face that we need to keep skilled, and I'll talk about that in the next slide, but we need to be aware that things can happen and things change, and things are changing quickly. Okay? So burning platform. We've got an election coming up, there will be change. Is it going to happen overnight? It's like the hair commercial, it won't happen overnight, but it will happen. So yeah, just have that in the back of your mind. Good segue into this one. So opportunities, again, you're seeing a lot of, shall we say, press, maybe it's the articles I'm reading, the need for soft skills, especially in enterprise architecture. For me, the key skill is the ability to facilitate and be the Switzerland. Because generally, especially when you're dealing with IT specialisations, you've got your networks, your apps, your database, your infrastructure people, and the business, and they're all talking different languages, and they're all going to have a particular viewpoint, because of course when you're dealing with a solution there are a number of ways to do that solution. So you're really up the top facilitating it all, and that's a key soft skill that you need to have. You take the understanding and their viewpoint, and you take, they call it views and viewpoints, and they're really good ways of looking at problems. Edward de Bono, if those of you are familiar with Edward de Bono, uses the hats, they change hats. So that's what you should be doing as an enterprise architecture, looking at it through other people's lenses to work out where they're coming from, and so to be able to handle that. And I think it's a real key skill that very few people have, but there are a lot of shall we say, needs for it in our business. Further skills, so I talked about that before, didn't I? The jack of all trades, you need to be aware and have an understanding so you can talk the talk, so you know what a VPN is if you're going down networks, and you understand that, router gateway, you don't need to know what the protocol is, but just understand and nod when they're talking about some of the stuff that they're talking about, because it gives you a bit of cred and helps that relationships, helps that conversation, because it looks like you're being empathetic and you understand their world, and I think that's a really important trait to have. The big thing for me, and it's a lesson, I hope the one thing you take away from this is you've got to maintain your currency. So I'm seeing a lot of people in areas who are very comfortable, and if you're not maintaining your skills, if you don't understand what cloud is, if you don't understand what Bitcoin or blockchain and distributed ledger technology is, start thinking about it, start learning about it, because if you don't, you're going to be maybe exposed. I mean, and I always look back on my career, and actually my son, who's 16 and going into year 11 this year, and you've got to have those chats with children at that age to know what you're going to do, and he's got no idea what he wants to do. And he said, did you know what you wanted to do in year 11, 12? And I had no idea. But he said, do you regret going down the path you did with IT? And I look back on that and said, not at all, not at all. It's been the best industry, the best career, that anyone can ask for, because you look at anything that you're going to do. I mean, yes, you can talk about medical profession and helping people, but the capability, the opportunity you have in IT to transform people's lives, it's our industry, isn't it? So, you know, you can be a medical researcher or IT, I reckon it's great. But as I said, currency is really important. The thing we sort of touched on earlier around current state, it's a real challenge for us. We know that the current environments that we're all working in isn't working. So what do we got to do to change? So, you know, we've talked about tiger teams, or we've even done tiger teams. We've even done sort of little proof of concept activities as ways. And I think that's probably the way to go. I like the idea of, because I don't think anyone knows the answer to this. And I think it's too big and too risky to go down a particular pathway because of there's politics involved, there's money involved. So I think we've just got to chunk off stuff and skill up and understand the risks of going down a certain path before we go down there. I think there's a lot more smarts going down a path like that. So I do like the opportunity of proof of concepts, and I think now the capability is available to us via cloud. And yes, we talked about before the security posture of the cloud, but compare that to an organisation in government who's got a handful of infrastructure people who are looking after the data centre that's outsourced, versus a company like Oracle who's got hundreds and hundreds of people who are focused on just this focus. So government hasn't got the scale that these big companies have got. So why bother getting in that space? So I think that's an important message there, that the opportunity to leverage the investment of these companies is there and it should be taken. I suppose that's the last point there. It's experimentation, it's thinking outside the box. As I said, it's not working now. So can we get it wrong any further? We probably can, but yeah, it's just something you need to think about, that's all. Haven't got the answer, but we need to think about it. But I think that last point there is really important for me, and that is regardless of your role, whether it's an enterprise architect, you're a BA, you're just a coder, what value are you providing to the organisation? That's a key question you need to ask yourself, because if they're going to do massive cuts, I'm not saying they are, but if they do, what's the areas that are going to go? It's the areas that aren't providing the value. You need to provide value, so it's important. All right, so coming to the end, I'm just thinking about some of those drivers, the public sector drivers. What's changing government? I mean, obviously, you know, change of government is coming in, but you know, the pressure on society coming in, you know, the consumerism that's changing expectations. That's point 2, I guess. The expectations are changing there from the community that government need to react to. So government will need to change. So there's a lot of drivers in that front. The user journeys, the user experience, a lot of change and drivers in that front. I mean, people haven't got the time anymore to sit on the you know, the half an hour phone call, or the sitting in a Canberra hospital for 5 hours waiting for treatment. These things now, you know, are a reality. In future, the community isn't going to accept that. So the change needs to happen. So government needs to change. So again, the pressure, which will continue, they've got productivity dividends at the moment, they'll just keep getting worse. So we're seeing a lot of agencies, which I won't name, that I know are coming to what they call a funding cliff. So they're going to get to a point where there's no more money, they're just keeping the lights on. So what's going to happen? There's going to be cuts. So what are you doing? How are you helping in that? How are you providing value in that organisation, other than getting made redundant? So just be aware of that. Digital natives, I've got a couple of those myself. You know, they're really great at texting, using their iPads, using social media, but they understand how it works under the covers now. So people say, oh, these digital natives, they're going to come into the workforce and, you know, they're going to change things. They don't know how it works. How are they going to do that? So now should they know about it? That's another discussion, because if we're going to be providing platform computing, they really don't need how, they just need to use it. They don't need to know how. But I think that's an expectation issue that I think we have in our leadership, that they think things are going to change when I don't think they are. I think a lot of people, we need a lot more skills, our industry, to actually get into the stuff. So even though we might be platform computing and that become the standard, we still need to have people with the skills to be able to develop the platforms. So where are those skills coming from? So what are we doing about, as an industry, about supporting that as well? So that's another one of my little soapboxes there, need to be aware of. So, but I'll leave it on this note, and that is really, have the fundamentals changed? So IT is still IT, you've still got a 1 and a 0. And actually what I didn't mention here is another thing that I've been reading a lot about lately, quantum computing. And apparently that's going to change the world. And if it ever happens, absolutely change the world. It will change everything. So things like cryptography and all that stuff go right out the window. So our world will be turned on its head. But is it going to be here anytime soon? No, not in my view. We're well many years away from getting into that space. That's why I didn't even bother mentioning it. You see, I read the the Accenture reports and all that sort of stuff that talk about that. I think it's overhyped. I don't think there's really any reality to, at this stage. So will that change? Don't know, but that's my crystal ball. But as I said, the thing that I want to just leave you with is that IT is still IT. So all of the things that you see and do on a daily basis, if you're managing on-premise software, as most organisations are, when it goes to cloud, that process around change management, configuration management, all of those things that you do now still got to be done, because software still needs to be watered and fed and changed, right? So nothing is going to change from a fundamental perspective. The delivery mechanism, the costing models, absolutely going to change and should change. And we do need to be agile, and we do need to move faster than we do, absolutely. But the fundamentals don't change. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.